As a state in recovery from the overall financial crisis, as well as the flood-related disaster that hit the state and other weather-related complications, there have been a number of programs made available to Iowa through state and federal programs to assist in some of these unmet needs. Can we talk a little bit about the rental recovery, the Iowa Rental Help Program, it's called?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. Part of the problem we have in the state of Iowa, and specifically the area in which we live, is we've done such a good job with flood mitigation that sometimes people forget, even though it was 17, 18 months ago, that there are still significant problems that people are facing. In fact, my business up in Cedar Rapids just reopened a month ago.
Yeah.
So 17 months after the flood, we're finally back in business.
And that's loss of income for the business. It might be loss of income for the landlord.
Very good point. It's not only loss of business for my brother Bob and myself, bringing income and loss of where you would hope the business would be at this point in time, but it's loss of money for the landlord. And it's a geometric progression, because that whole area that suffered the flood where the business is, nothing is up and running, and then all of a sudden a few things pop up, but everyone's struggling in that first 2 years of recovery. The rental assistance is set up so that businesses and individuals and residential renters can have a little buffer zone, a bridge to get to where they should be. And the positive thing is we saw that as a need for everyone. The negative thing that I'll admit is we didn't get and are struggling to get the money in the hands of people who need it on a timely basis. And that's my biggest self-criticism, is that there's dollars allocated for flood recovery for individuals, families, and businesses, but we haven't gotten it out there as quickly as we should have. And that's what we're working on now. And it's critical. We're in the second winter after the flood.
Yeah, when you look at the landscape in Cedar Rapids, it really hits home still. It takes a while.
And Iowa City and Coralville did such a fantastic job of getting some things up and running. The number of businesses back in their place of business, getting Christmas lights up, simple things that say, hey, we're back in business. And Nancy Quillhurst and the Chamber of Commerce have done just a great job. They've been partners with the Rebuild Iowa. They've been there all along the way. I'm proud to live in a community that everyone kind of locked arms and said, what can we do to make this work for a number of people? And
that whole corridor idea really.
The corridor idea. It's kind of, we've talked the talk, and now it's time to get the business to walk the walk after the disasters, and we've done that.
Let's talk a little bit about the funds that were made available to the Community Development Block Grant Funds through HUD, through the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and how those funds are being distributed and the impact of those funds.
Well, the CDBG is critical. The Community Development Block Grant monies are critical for rebuilding and for expanding what we need in terms of rental and ownership properties, and also for critical infrastructure for people don't like to talk about it, but wastewater treatment plants. It's what the CDBG has done is provided money for shovel-ready programs with Iowa City and Coralville and Cedar Rapids, the corridor. The CDBG monies are actually funneled through the Council of Governments, unless you're a larger city like Iowa City, and they actually get the money directly apportioned to Iowa City. The Council of Governments is another example of a mechanism we've had in place, but the floods and the tornadoes have kind of shifted them into overdrive, saying this is a mechanism in place. We don't want to recreate the wheel. This is how we're going to funnel these funds through. Again, the negative part is anytime you're working with HUD, while they are our key funding source, to draw down the money is somewhat difficult at times, because there's a significant checks and balances list that you have to go through before you can access those dollars. So we've been working numerous hours at the local and state and federal levels to say we got to cut through some of this red tape, because there's no one is dishonestly trying to access money. We're trying to rebuild as quickly and as smartly as we can.
Now, everyone is concerned about retirement. And just across the board, I think we can fairly say everyone wants a nice, comfortable retirement. And we, here in the state of Iowa, saw a couple things happen in this past year. IPERS, people were seeing that maybe their payouts for retirement were not going to be what they were hoping them to be. So I know that there was a committee formed to help take a look at what can be done with IPERS in terms of investing the monies properly and maintaining those funds. So can you talk a little bit about that new advisory committee?
Yeah, there was an interim committee and an advisory committee working together to take a look at the solvency for IPERS. On a very positive note, IPERS is solvent. That is not the issue. The issue at hand is what you referred to as, are the level of benefits going to be what people had hoped or had expected and hoped that they would be upon retirement age. And that will be, this is what's called an IPER year. We deal with IPERS every couple of years to look at the solvency, and the director will make some suggestions to the legislature on what changes may or may not be made. Most of those suggestions will focus on how much people contribute to the account and how much the employer contributes to the account, and if those amounts or percentages will change. I think you'll see a proposal that both kick in a little more so that the retirement benefits at any given age, 57, 62, 65, 67, and 70, and 75, will remain at close to the same levels people have expected over the years. But also, most people that are in TIA-CREF are experiencing the same thing that everyone is with their 401ks and other investments, is that they've taken a significant hit. And while the markets are rebounding, the markets have rebounded. They're on an incline, but they're nowhere where they sat in the year 1999. And so we're almost a decade behind in our growth for investments or our growth for retirement benefits. So it's going to be a struggle. I'm not throwing up any flags right now, but I am concerned that we'll be able to keep the retirement benefits at the level that people expected 6 or 7 years ago.
Well, that's great news. I'm glad that's being addressed. And
yeah, we're working on that solvency. The solvency is not an issue, but the level of benefits is always going to be a topic of discussion.